over 60% of rap music albums, which generate over $700 million annually, are purchased by white teenagers. It has become an American cultural phenomenon. Recently, when two rap stars were arrested, it was said that they were acting out the lyrics of the newest form of the music, gangsta rap. Rap, is it business? Is it art? Is it social expression? Is it something else? Joining us now, music critic Stanley Crouch, rap performer KRS-One, and rap industry mogul Russell Simmons. I'm pleased to have each of them here, mogul, to talk about this business.
Mogul Simmons.
Mogul. Russell, I mean, you're identified so with this. Tell me what it is. Tell me why you think it's taken off like it is. Tell me what you think the cultural impact. Give me your sort of.
I think that rap is the newest young black expression created, out of a need for our own. I think that blues and rock and roll and jazz and now rap are new, and now is another new expression from young black America. And I think that it's obviously going to meet resistance and has met resistance. It's part of another cultural revolution that we started. I think in most societies you see the oppressed are the most creative, and they create their own because whatever's out there is not theirs. And whenever they create their own, if it's good enough, it penetrates the mainstream. And the resistance that the rappers are meeting is no different from the resistance that all the other artists in the past who've changed the course of American pop culture have met.
Yeah. Do you think it will have the longevity, say, of rock and roll? Do you think it'll have that kind of permanence?
Well, it started years ago in the mid-'70s, or now in the mid-'90s. It's only grown, its momentum has only grown, over these years. And I mean, there'll be a time when it won't be as popular as it is now, but that time hasn't started to come. And, there'll always be this art form, just as there's always blues. I mean, blues is not as popular as it was, but it was important, and it was a generation's music, and rap is this generation's music.
What do you think of it, Stanley?
Well, I think that most of it doesn't have that much to do with music at all. I mean, first thing is that the people who do it are not musicians by and large. And there's no musical interaction in terms of people actually playing musical instruments and responding one to the other in a musical environment. Usually the stuff it's a technological phenomenon, usually. That is, people sit in and they patch different pieces of things together. Now, very rare, so there's no real virtuoso instrumental development of the sort that exists in jazz or in the best of blues. Secondarily, it seems to me that it's a phenomenon that you cannot disconnect from the kind of youth rebellion that has been sold to adolescents in America by mass media, whether it was Woodstock or anything else like that. I mean, the whole idea of the bad boy as a cultural hero, that has nothing to do with Afro-American culture, quote unquote. I mean, it's part of a general media phenomenon. And lastly, I don't think that the tradition of the music that's been talked about quite eloquently by people like Albert Murray, Ralph Ellison, and now by Wynton Marsalis say, is even in this music, because most of the people are incapable of dealing with the level of sophistication that the Afro-American tradition of music actually presents.
I would say, I would start off and say that, number one, I think when you start to talk about music, I think that there's a difference between music and musicians. True, it can be argued that we are not musicians, but I do think some of us are not. But I do think we are music. I don't think you should call us artists. I think we are the art. I don't think there is a medium or any forum for art to express itself. Other people study art and then become artists, and then in an artist forum they begin to express themselves. I think we should be looked at as the art as opposed to the artist.
Wow. Do you, Russell, do you agree with that?
As much as I could get, yeah. I think I'm pretty clear on what the point he's making. But, when you talk about how eloquently, Wynton Marsalis will discuss, I mean, I don't think, years ago I took Quincy Jones to a breakfast, and that breakfast was in honor of his son. And I invited all the artists who I represented at that time. And Quincy was like shocked to meet so many young and talented, I refer to them as artists, but, creators of this art. And he met them all. He met LL Cool J, who was just making his first record, and Run-D.M.C, and met Tila Rock, and a bunch. There was so many of them. And Houdini even had a record. So it was a lot of us. And he met them, and he said, God, it's like a movement. It's like this whole, these people, no matter, even if they're diverse kinds of music that they represent, they're all from one, niche. And they all, have their own energy. It's like a clique. He said it's a lot like we were when we were jazz musicians, when we all were together and we were creating something new, and the mainstream didn't accept us, but we had our own thing. He said the artists, it's very similar. And at that time, I think jazz musicians, were against the mainstream. They were creating their own. They were forging a new culture for America. American pop culture was changing because of their influence, and they were people who were on the edge. And they were from the underbelly of society. They created something new and of their own. But now you talk about people like Wynton Marsalis. I mean, those people, they said, well, we culturally elitists, we can, the way we express ourselves, it's something that's already so mainstream and so, not mainstream now, but something that's so accepted that, now we can, forge this kind of plastic attitude, and that those new people aren't, like the jazz musicians looked up and saw the rock and roll musicians and said, wow, what are they doing? That's not art. And I'm sure the blues musicians looked at the jazz musicians and said, what are they doing? That's not art. And, the adults who are now really boring, old rock and roll parents with their ponytails and their tuxedos, they're who they are. But they, and they may not understand. If they still have a ponytail with their tuxedo, they may understand there's something new and people are creating something of their own and of their own generation.
Well, see, I think that Mr. Simmons is, Mogul Simmons, is, I think he has a very superficial understanding of how a lot of this goes on. Now, one would not argue that he's a central member of a very large entertainment aspect of the entertainment industry. But first and foremost, we have to look at something. First thing, people like Bessie Smith, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Fletcher Henderson, they came from every class. They weren't from the underbelly or anything. I mean, Duke Ellington was from the middle class. Fletcher Henderson studied as a pharmacist, one of the guys who created the big band sound. I mean, Louis Armstrong came from the bottom, went to the top. But these people were very big influences on the scene.
Economic class.
Excuse me, did I interrupt you?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Now the thing is that these people came from every class, and they didn't represent rebellion. They represented an affirmation of the very best as possible in America. Now that is that they changed. Like a guy like Louis Armstrong, he changed the way everybody in the world thought about playing a very difficult instrument, which is the trumpet. Duke Ellington changed the way everybody thought about harmonizing music. Billy Eckstine changed things. These people actually elevated the performance. Also, see, we have to recognize something. This celebration of something in the bottom would pretend that there's not a real sophistication that is always central to what makes this civilization what it is. A person who arrives in an emergency room who's got 3 9mm bullets in him is being addressed by some people who know a great deal more about the effects of those bullets, about drugs, and about anything than that particular person.
Right. But can you deny, Stanley, go ahead. You want to, Russell?
No, I'm listening to you. I want to hear what you have to say. Then I'm going to respond to.
Can you deny the impact, and if it is having such a pervasive impact on so many young people, in terms of the number of records sold, and the number of people who are listening and imitating, doesn't that say something?
Yeah, it says something that I was saying to Mr. Simmons and KRS-One in the green room. There's always been an appetite.
Well, thanks very much, Stanley.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna reiterate it. There's always been an appetite for barbaric images of black people that go back to minstrel shows. I mean, the first mega hit, the first mogul creation in film was D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, in which black people were depicted the same way they're depicted in a bunch of videos now. Drunkards, violent scum who are always bullying their way across people. So that was in 1914. Now, 80 years later, we got the same thing with Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, Snoop Doggy Dogg.
Can I say this? First of all, what's newsworthy and what's the most against the grain may be one element of rap music, which is gangster rap. But I represent artists from all, I mean, very diverse, you know, attitudes, and we talk about from born-again Christians to Muslims who are very righteous in terms of their approach, in terms of, you know, right and wrong is an issue that we deal with, you know, in a lot of different ways in terms of rap artists and how they address, you know, those issues. I mean, KRS-One is one place, and Public Enemy is there, and those artists talk about a very rational, positive, intelligent approach to being young and broke and black and frustrated in America. They talk about education and a bunch of other ways, and an obvious attempt to influence their generation in a positive way. And those people have a position, and they're probably the most threatening, and there was a time when Public Enemy created a lot more problems for me than Onyx does today, when they had more resistance for those kind of artists than there is today for some gangster rappers. But those artists do one thing, and Run-D.M.C are born-again Christians, and they have their own approach, and Tribe Called Quest are what they are, and then they're gangster rappers. So let's not take all of rap and put it in one place. There's very diverse.
But let me ask you this question, Russell. Do you find some of it going too far, as some radio stations have, and are you alarmed by the extension of it in terms of the lyrics that...
The radio stations have they have a right to choose what they think is accessible enough and commercial enough to sell their station, or that they may feel comfortable with. That's up to them. I mean, their position about rap music or any music is one, it's a programming decision, or it's also their conscience. They can take it how they want it. But my opinion about, there are some artists who are very frustrated, angry, and who don't have a rational approach. And those artists in some cases are gangster rappers, or just really rebellious, frustrated, and they're not that they're gangsters, but they're just upset, and they say it. When Sticky Fingers says, "I hate your guts and I hope you die," my name is Sticky Fingers, my life's a lie. He's third generation 40 Projects. He hasn't traveled. He hasn't, you know, he doesn't know a lot of the reasons he's frustrated, but he is, and he says it. And when you hear it in Boise, Idaho, it should hit you in your chest. You say, God, is he that mad? He can hear all through the album why he's mad. He may not be as articulate about expressing it as some other artists who are more educated and who are more worldly. But I really appreciate his energy, because he speaks for a lot of people who we would not talk about if not for him. When KRS-One, or when Eazy said F the police, you say, why does he say that? And you start to zero in on Compton and say, well, God, that's the way they treat brothers in Compton. And then the rest of the country starts to connect the dots and realize they get treated the same way. Then Eazy makes a great statement that in advance of the riots, in advance of, he said F the police. And he meant it. And we had to address that, not what he's saying, but the conditions that create the kind of art, the kind of music, or the kind of lyrics that come out of his mouth. Those are things that are a lot more important than that one person is expressing an attitude that a lot of people have, that we generally wouldn't talk about if not for his music.
All right, go ahead, Stanley. Go ahead, Stanley. I don't want to rotate.
Look, you know, if you had, see, most of the people who were in the Ku Klux Klan were from so-called poor white trash redneck communities. And nobody is going to, you and nobody else, is going to make recordings promoting, if as one guy pointed out in Newsweek, if exactly the same lyrics that somebody like Dr. Dre uses were said by a white skinhead group, talking about, you know, kill these ends, this and that, and blah, 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 that wouldn't probably even be put out. Now, the question I'm raising, Simmons, is this, man.
It's different, though.
Wait, repeat that.
This was Slayer, and they say a lot more scary things than anything that Dr. Dre will ever say. I have represented bands that are a lot more aggressive than any rap band I've ever represented.
Okay. This was a piece that Jonathan Alter wrote in Newsweek, and basically was making, you don't buy the point that Alter was making. I mean, he basically was calling for that what was bothering him was this notion that everybody who wanted to restrict some of these lyrics and exercise some self-restraint on them, on the use of some of these lyrics or the playing of some of these lyrics, you know, were too quick. People were too quick to criticize it as censorship.
I don't think that anybody has to play anything on their radio station. I'm not suggesting that we make records for the radio and that the radio not playing them is some form of censorship. You know, the vehicles that come up that are put together just for the sole purpose of exposing those artists, and in cases where there are some vehicles like that, exposing those artists because there's demand for them, those vehicles come and go. And And those have nothing to do with an artist expressing himself. He has the right to express it, and if a record company doesn't think it's the kind of lyric that they want to promote and put out, they shouldn't have to put it out or promote it.
So, I mean, we ought to be critical of it. If the record companies, Time Warner or whoever they are.
Def Jam. I put out what I believe, you know.
You're a record company.
Exactly.
And if you put it out, then we ought to hold you responsible, not the artist. You know, and if in fact, well, hold on. If the language,
we can all be responsible. I feel totally responsible, not for making the art or for creating the music.
And if those
but
lyrics,
I feel responsible about what I promote. I feel not only responsible, but I feel I'm confident that what I promote, I stand by. You know that
you cannot hold
the record
a record company responsible for the fact that the expression that they put out doesn't equal the intelligence of the viewer. What happens is the expression that's put out is more advanced than the viewer's education. If the viewer's education was more advanced than the expression, then they would understand what they're seeing. But the problem is bigger than rap or music. Yeah. It's the broad base of education of the viewer altogether.
But and I assume from what you just said that you are arguing that rap that comes from you and other artists, you know, is a true artistic form.
Yes.
And that there is real artistry here, which Stanley is stepping forward to say it's not even in the same place as the art that he recognizes and the art that he cares about.
But I think there's another important point here, which is this. See, we know that there are a lot of decadent problems going on in this society, and the worst parts of this rap phenomenon are connected to everything that's going wrong in the society, because there is no black and white reality that to the extent.
But then why shouldn't we appreciate it and say this is an expression of the problems that these kids, where they're coming from, and therefore it says something to us and we ought to pay attention to it?
Yeah, but who doesn't pay attention? The point I'm making is this, Charlie. Look, nobody says we can forgive an anti-Semite for putting out anti-Semite stuff. Nobody would forgive Charles Manson for putting out recordings if they advocated mass murder. That's not forgiven or explained away if the artists are white.
Charles Manson.
Let me finish, Russell. Mogul. There's only that those kind of things are only excused when black people do them, because we have a double standard, and that is that if white people do something barbaric, they're held to the highest standard. If black people do something barbaric, then we haul out a whole bunch of sociological cliches and say that's their culture. Now, point of fact, there is an argument going on even in rap itself with people like Queen Latifah against this. So it's not as though, it's not as though
there's no self-criticism.
There's one vision of how it ought to go.
All right, let me just do one thing before we get too far into this. Let's show somebody what we're talking about here. This is from Sounds of the Police. Tell me about this so that we know your sense of it, you, the artist, and what you viewed this as and what you were saying and why it was important to say it and where did it come from and all that.
Right. Well, the record Sound of the Police, this is a record, before I even get into the record, an artist represents the consciousness of the collective thinking or the consciousness of the collective society. At least I do. And this record is KRS-One representing the collective consciousness of black youth in America today. Ever since the Rodney King case and verdict, black youth, as well as youth in general, but I'll just pinpoint it to black youth, are very fed up with the judicial system on a whole. And it's not a record that should be looked at as, oh, this is just another cop-bashing record. It's a record basically expressing how we feel. We know how the judicial system feels about us. They sent the Marines to South Central L.A. Now, we would like to say how we feel about you or them.
Roll tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first time I saw that.
Stanley, before I go to Russell.
Is that on the box yet?
No, probably not.
Well, we'll see.
No, he didn't play with the box.
I mean, I find that sort of thing somewhat irresponsible. In fact, quite irresponsible, because the first thing is this. Black people in Compton a few years ago tried to get taxed extra money so they could get more police. Now, whenever the police step out of line, they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That is, if they murder somebody, they should be either executed or put away for good. If they're caught selling drugs, they should be prosecuted to the greatest extent. If they use excessive force illegally, they should. But, point of fact, the average black person, including this collective black youth you talk about, when they see the police car coming, they're less worried than if they see it. Oh, come on now. Come on now.
That's absolutely untrue. That's absolutely untrue.
Who's got the highest body count, Mogul Simmons?
No, in the case of
Russell,
you know better than that.
Possibly in the case of
is there any city where the police have killed 400 people in 1 year?
Well,
at any time in American history.
If you compartmentalize, like in other words, if you just chop up the police in terms of state, then of course the figure will be lower. But if you nationalize the situation,
are you serious?
Versus yes,
would you like to bet a sizable amount of money on that?
I would like to bet a sizable amount of money
that
the world.
I'm turning it off.
that's the police. The police department nationally and worldwide are responsible for more deaths than any black. First of all, how can a minority be responsible for more deaths than the majority and still not have nothing?
Well, but KRS, man,
mathematically, it doesn't work
out. Let me tell you something, man. Let's get to the real. Let's deal with facts.
The real facts. Need to be policed in some cases, and that record is just a reminder that people are watching, and that people are watching, and they're frustrated. And then maybe if you're a cop and you hear that record, you say, God, they're frustrated. Maybe I shouldn't just snatch this kid, this A student, B student, whatever he is, off the corner and put a cuff on him and throw him on the ground.
Yeah, but
maybe I should not, because maybe these kinds of records and this kind of attitude that's growing, this sentiment, maybe we should talk about in our meetings how we should be more careful about the way that we approach our jobs. What he's saying, it may be expressing not all black kids, but he may be saying enough that there are enough black kids who have been harassed, who are frustrated, and who are afraid to see a cop car, whether they're a student or not, whether they are completely law-abiding citizens or not, that they have been harassed. I have been harassed.
Look, we've all been harassed. The point I'm
mad at cab drivers. I can't get a cab.
You've been
it doesn't mean all cab drivers are idiots.
All right.
But the point I'm trying to make is this.
And then I got to make another point.
Is that the fact of the matter is this. Any major city of millions in which you had even 50 police homicides would result in the police chief losing his job. I mean, these people...
No, not necessarily.
That's not the point. The point is that...
Russell.
Let's count the body.
What's the point?
Let's count the body.
That's not a good point there,
No, the point I'm making is that the biggest danger is not the cops.
No, I can summarize too. Let me just do one other thing. It is not always...
We didn't accuse them of being the biggest... That biggest danger is not...
Most people are not the cops.
The biggest danger is not the issue.
They gotta be.
That's not the fact. The job is not to be the biggest danger or any danger.
We can go to the stats.
We've never killed 200 million people.
That's not the point.
The American flag did.
Russell.
Who cares about how many... We're talking about the fact that there are irresponsible police and that we should police the police. And in some cases, we should talk about how frustrated some of us get
Russell, in a
because
minute.
of the action of some of the police.
No.
I'm not saying that the police are more responsible for death than the criminals, but they should be... Their job is...
Russell, I'm almost out of time. Hold on. I'm almost out of time. It is not always the police that are the object of these lyrics. Sometimes it's women. And the argument against rap and the rap on rap is that the lyrics frequently degrade women.
Do I respond to that?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to. We talk about sexism in rap. Well, I think probably the thing that scares people the most about the sexist rap lyrics, because they are very sexist, some of the lyrics, that the thing that scares them the most, I think, is language. And language is a different issue. We should take that, we discuss that another day, language. But we talk about sexist rap artists, there's not sexism in rap, there's sexism in the world. Right. I get out of my car, listen to Onyx's song, Sucking the Next Ding Dong, and I say, oh my gosh, it's a song about cheating. And I walk into a party with a bunch of famous models and sophisticated, rich, polished European playboys, and I walk in and the guy who's giving the party says, there's no talent here. I said, huh? He said, there's no talent here. And they have this long conversation, and they start pointing out girls, and they start referring to them as B models, and they start referring to them as, you know, as all tricks. They didn't use the words, the same language, but they were a lot more sexist than the rap artists are.
All right.
Just because they're Europeans, probably because they're Italian in some cases. But the fact is, the sexism in the world. So when rap artists express it, and if the language is a little bit more explicit,
all right, I got to go.
It's a separate issue.
We'll come back and you'll invite you back, and we'll come back and talk about the lyrics.
Okay.
All right.
We needed an hour.
We needed a full hour.
Well, all right. We'll come back and pick it up. All right.
But
no more references. Stanley, no more references to Russell as a mogul. All right.
Why?
All right.
That's an honest American tradition.
We're out of here. See you next time.